Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the Jon Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals. From directors, producers, writers, cinematographers, and of course, costume designers. Designing Hollywood covers some of the most celebrated professionals in the motion picture industry. The show explores the artistry, the craftsmanship, and the stories that bring our favorite motion pictures to life.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Musali, the new president and CEO of Western Costume, welcoming Designing Hollywood back to Western. This is our men's tailor shop, where we're custom making clothes all the time, alterations. This is our women's custom made. We can make anything you guys need us to make, alter anything. We can deck out a full army if you want in our military department. Thank you, Designing Hollywood, for coming in to see Western Costume. Hope to see you soon.
Today on the Designing Hollywood podcast, we are thrilled to welcome Alice Brooks, ASC, one of the most in-demand cinematographers working today. Alice is best known for her breathtaking work on musical and character-driven films, including In the Heights and a favorite of mine, Tick, Tick, Boom, both of which drew widespread praise for their dynamic, emotionally rich camera work and bold use of color and movement. Most recently, Alice has brought her visual magic to Universal's epic two-part adaptation of Wicked and Wicked for Good, reuniting with director Jon Chu to reimagine Oz for a new generation. Her work on Wicked has already earned major recognition, including nominations from the American Society of Cinematographers and Critics' Choice for Best Cinematography. We'll be diving into how Alice designs the visual language of musicals, what it means to shoot inside a world as beloved as Wicked, and how she collaborates with directors, production designers, costume designers, and to create images that stay with you long after the credits roll. Without further ado, I'm very excited for this one. Please welcome cinematographer Alice Brooks to the Designing Hollywood show. Alice, it is great to meet you. Great to have you here.
Great to meet you too. Thank you for having me today.
I've got to tell you, I'm really excited. I've been interviewing more and more female cinematographers, and I love to hear the perspective. The last person I talked to, Mandy, who shot Elvis, she told me that one of her aspirations is to shoot a James Bond movie. And I said, it's about time. I think you should. But I wanted to ask you, you go back, you've been shooting for, not to date anyone, but for a quarter century. And you're a graduate of USC. Did you always want to get into cinematography? Were you always into photography? And how did that all begin for you?
I was a child actor. I grew up in New York City, and my dad was a playwright and my mom was a singer and a dancer. And they didn't have a lot of money. And when I was about 5, they put us into child acting to help support the family. And I think it was the greatest childhood ever.
I'll bet.
I was in love with camera and with lighting, and I did almost 40 national commercials from the ages of 5 until 10. And then we moved to Los Angeles. And when I was 10 and my sister was 8, because she sort of had this career that seemed to be taking off as a child actor. And once I got to LA, I didn't work much, but but I would go, my parents would pick me up after school and I would go sit on dark sound stages, and I was supposed to be doing my homework, but I just watched everyone work and I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with being in a dark, musty space with just some plywood and some painted walls.
Right.
And suddenly it would turn into something magical, into this completely different world. And the way I was seeing it was through the power of light. And now, of course, I know there are so many craftspeople that go into making a movie, but the light was the thing I was always attracted to. And then I didn't work much when I moved to Los Angeles. The one thing, since you have all these things up, and I don't think I've ever told anyone in any podcast, my last job was I was in the Scream movies. So So Wes Craven had a whole bunch of teenagers come and scream during ADR Loop Group, and we all were screaming. And then he sent everyone home but me, and I ended up doing the screaming for the entire day, and it ended up being the opening screen. You know, the credit comes up,
Right.
and then they've used it in all the movies since. I still get residual checks, but anyway, that's just a little
Okay,
a fun,
that's amazing because,
fun
I'm a big horror fan, and to hear that, how incredible. That's
So I was around that same time. I had my last audition for a movie called While You Were Sleeping, and I had auditioned 7 times. And we lived in the Valley, and my parents, and the audition was in Santa Monica, and I kept missing school. It was September. It was the beginning of a school year, and I said to my afterwards, my mom and I went for a walk on the beach in Santa Monica to wait out traffic. And I said to my mom, I didn't want to be an actress. I wanted to be a cinematographer. And she said she knew. And there's this little feather that I saw on the beach when she said that. And I picked it up and I carried it around with me everywhere as a reminder of when my dream started, of when I declared my dream. And we figured out how to get me into USC for film school, like you went to, and it's been a crazy world making movies.
I love that, when you were at USC, were you in demand, wanting to get into cinematography? Because, when I was there, everybody's dreaming about being a director, and then there was the filmic writing program. But if you knew you were going in there, I would imagine you'd be in demand, because a cinematographer can be used on 480s. Or did you shoot a lot of stuff in college?
I shot a ton of stuff. So I was an undergrad, and I shot while I was there, not during the years. So you can't start taking production classes till you're a junior.
Right.
And so I did the early classes, and then I ended up for a 480. I wrote a 480 as a junior, and because I knew I wanted something very visual to be able to shoot, because I wanted to prove to everyone I was a visual storyteller.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it, it got selected. And then the person who wanted to direct it, I said, that's great, but you have to choose me as the cinematographer. So I made a deal with her. And so then I shot it too. And that's what got Jon Chu's attention, actually. So I met Jon at school, and he had seen it, and it got several people's attention. And he asked me to shoot his thesis film, When the Kids Are Away, which was a musical out of that. And the year after finishing USC, I didn't want to, I was at USC on a full scholarship, and I didn't want to go to grad school and incur any debt. So I stuck around USC knowing exactly what you said. There were no other people who really wanted to shoot. And I offered every single graduate student to shoot their film. And so I spent that year, I shot 30 thesis films that year. So I call that my graduate school year. And then I came out with like a decent reel. And
oh my God,
so many people worked on so many different types of projects. And, when you're at USC, the thing you don't know when you get out of school is when you're at USC, you have all the resources in the world. And then you get out of school and suddenly you're working on shorts and indies that have no resources. And so it's a quite a rude awakening when you get out of school.
But I think your path through USC was one of the smartest I've ever heard. See, kids, if you're watching this at home, listen to what Alice did, because that is well done. And that was something I didn't understand, why there wasn't more synergy between people at SC. It's like everybody had an aversion to use people from the theater department as actors in their films, that was great. So you actually met Jon at SC.
Yeah, we were a semester apart. So he's one semester below me. So he always talks about me as if I'm so much older than him, but we're a few months apart.
But what a great success story for the school. I mean, I always thought it was a little different when I was there, but I always thought what you did was how it was going to be, and you meet these people, and I'm sure a lot of people did collaborate. Now, let me ask you, when you wanted to get into cinematography, did you start looking at films? Were you influenced by other cinematographers? What were some of the things that you looked at that people that you admired, and what were the films that really touched you from a photographic standpoint?
So we lived in this little teeny apartment in New York, 300 square feet with one bedroom. And my dad loved movies. He had, first it was a VHS collection, then it was a Laserdisc collection, then it was a DVD collection. It
My
was,
man.
yes. And even when he passed away, he was watching a movie. He had a heart attack and he was watching a movie in a chair. He loved movies more than anything. And knowing now, I have my own child, and I understand there are certain movies that are too grown up for children. But my dad decided I could watch anything as long as I could read the opening credits. So I learned to read somewhere between the ages of 4 and 5 because he'd let me watch movies with him. So I'd curl up in his arms and we practiced reading the opening titles. And then, so every night we'd watch amazing films, all the John Wayne Westerns, every Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers musical.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We watched old serials, TV serials, or I guess they were movie reels at the time. We watched, it was an incredible wealth of movies, black and white, color, everything, just on our little tube TV on VHS. And then, but my first memory was watching The Natural, Barry Levinson with, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now suddenly I'm so tired. We've just sort of finished our world tour.
Yeah, of course.
I just landed in Los Angeles after being all over the place for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine. But no, you're right.
Yeah, so it's Barry Levinson, Glenn Close, Barbara Hershey, Kim Basinger, and Robert Redford in The Natural. And I remember laying in his arms, and Caleb Deschanel shot it, who I met him for the first time last year, and it's like, to me, like meeting one of the Beatles.
Yeah, he's God tier.
And I just remember that the end of the movie, when the baseball hits the lights and all the sparks go off, and I knew something magical was happening. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it made me feel something.
It's funny when you just said that. I hear the score in my mind, and I just got that whoosh you get when something good happens, and I just got that just hearing you describe that, just because that music, the score too, is just epic, and the photography. It's what a great movie. I mean, how can you not look at that movie and think it's one of those beautifully shot films of all time? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Good choice. I approve.
So then, like, I think knowing that was my first sort of love of photography, even though I didn't understand that was what cinematography was. The Black Stallion also, I mean, I just really, really, Caleb Deschanel to me was everything.
Yeah, and another great score. I think Danny Elfman scored The Black Stallion, and now I'm not. You're doing it to me again. I'm like, you certainly have good taste. That's some amazing work, and Caleb shot The Right Stuff,
and he shot The Right Stuff,
which is a favorite of mine back from 1983. Where's that 4K, Warner Brothers? But what an amazing, and you got to meet him. I mean, that was now when you first started out. Did you start playing with cameras and lenses? Were you shooting things with film like Super 8 film, or did you start with video? How did you start to get into this? What was the first thing that you started to do with cameras?
We were the last. Well, first I did still photography in the darkroom. So as soon as I knew, like, I was going to pursue this path in high school, I started doing still photography. So I started shooting on film, printing my own images, developing my own negative, and really and my sister had all these, young Hollywood actor friends. And so I just go out and shoot them all the time. And it was great. I had all these beautiful, wonderful faces to get to photograph. And then and then in film school, we were one of the last, actually Jon, who was a semester behind me, his was the last class to shoot on film. So I was the second to the last class to shoot on film. So we started on Super 8. I still have my Super 8 camera. We shot with it on Tick Tick Boom, and it's a Canon, beautiful. You can set the iris, everything, love it. And then we then so that would have been our, were those 290s? Then
Yeah.
310s. They split them. So one person shot video and the other, you were paired, and one shot video and one shot, one was on film on 16. And so with my partner, I directed the one on video so that I could shoot his, which was on film.
Yeah. Nicely done.
He wanted to be a director anyway, so that worked out great. And then for the 480, we shot on 16, and right out of my 480, I got a grad thesis film, and it was called Ocha Cups for Christmas. I still think it's a beautiful movie. We shot on 35. It was I had taken the 35 class in school, so I'd done a music video on 35, and I had done some, like another guy who wanted to direct commercials made a commercial reel on 30, and we shot on 35. So I'd shot 35 already, but the short film was sort of this big adventure. We went to Japan to film it.
Wow.
And I had never left the country before. I had to get my passport, and I'm in Japan as a film student shooting this short film. And I thought it was Michael Fimignari directed it, who's now a director, and he shoots as well. He's wonderful. And still a good friend of mine. And he really, I felt very lucky that he chose me to shoot that film, because that also, it was just very elevated. The production design was beautiful. A friend of mine also, Momo, she did the production design, and it really was one of the first experiences I had working with a production designer, because on our 480, we had a production designer, but it wasn't someone who wanted to be one when they grew up.
Yeah. That was one of the things about USC that was sort of always problematic a little bit, is everybody wanted to do something else.
But my 480 was great. We shot at CBS Radford on the Seinfeld train, and because it all was supposed to take place in New York, and it's like this gritty, dark movie about suicide. I don't know why I wrote a movie about suicide, but that was what I did. And then I shot this, and then most of the thesis films I ended up shooting were on 35 until Jon Chu. And Jon Chu wrote to Panavision when we were going to do his thesis film, and he wanted to shoot on the new Panavized F900. So that was the first Sony F900 digital camera, and and Bob Harvey, who was president of Panavision at the time, gave us the prototype they had to go.
Wow.
Film his film.
What made him decide to want to do that when you had access? You're shooting 35 to go to shoot digital.
So I think Jon was always on sort of the cutting edge of what he loves technology. He every new Apple product he gets before they come out, practically. And I think being a young filmmaker and being sort of on the cusp of, the camera that the new Star Wars movies were going to be shot on,
right,
was exciting for him.
How was that for you? Suddenly you're jumping, going from.
Suddenly it's a new learning curve, right? So, and it's a period piece. It takes place in the late 50s or early 60s, and it's about this little boy who accidentally stays home from school and sees what the moms do when the kids are at school, when the kids are away, and they go into this big musical number. And so
wow, that sounds great. I haven't
it's really fun, and it got Jon an agent, and it got him on the cover of Hollywood Reporter at 22 years old, and I got an agent out of it. It really gave us a huge boost coming out of school. Not that boost lasted very long for me, at least, but it was a nice way to come out of school.
Did you, having done still photography and developing your own material, when you went into the digital realm, did you have to change your approach philosophically, or did you have to change how you did things?
And did you? meter. I still have my light meter that I stole from my friend in film school he wanted to be a producer. And I didn't have any money. And so he's like, you can borrow my light meter. And then I never gave it back to him. And so I saw him 5 years ago or not even 5 years ago. I think it might've been 2 years ago. And I said to him, you want your light meter back? I feel badly that I took it from you. And he said, no, it's okay. I'm like, oh, good. Cause I still use it. So
Right.
yeah.
I love that.
Yes, it's a Spectra. I love my light meter.
Well, I'm just curious though, since you lived through the transition. I mean, I remember like what you're talking about, that Sony camera, and then I remember like when Michael Mann shot Collateral using the Viper, and he talked about I want to see into the night, and that things started to change. He shot Miami Vice with that, and I actually worked. I was a documentarian on Superman Returns, where we got the first Panavision, the Genesis cameras, Genesis 1 through 5, and Tom Sieg was using those and seeing. It was so much fun just looking at camera tests and seeing what that camera could do, and it could only shoot 1080. It was not, and going through that whole experience. How did you feel about? Were you married to film? Were you married to 35?
No, I mean, I think at the time, you're a student, so you want to learn everything, or
Right.
You're a young filmmaker, you want to learn everything, and you want to understand what the different tools are. It was the same with lights. I used to go hang out at KinoFlow and just like learn about all their lights, and then later on at Cineo and learn about their lights, and and light gear, and as LED tools as LED lights were developing, and I think I shot a few more thesis films on the F900 after that, and then the majority of everything though was Super 16 or 35, and then I got out of school, and still everything I shot was on film for a really long time. Even so, because we're talking about the movie I did with Jon, the first time, that would have been, I think, 2002. So it wasn't, there was still a long development period of.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were still shooting like Dogma 95 stuff back. That's amazing. I mean, this is an amazing story. I love the fact that you really delved into all this and holistically honed your craft. It's so cool. And to work with Jon like that and develop that kind of, a relationship is such a rare thing, I think, in Hollywood these days. And I think the results, I mean, people are like, enough of the memory lane stuff. When are you going to get to Wicked? But I mean, I have to say, like, even going back to like Gem and the Holograms, which I like. I'm a fan.
Love Gem and the Holograms. I think it's a great movie.
So you guys sort of, Jon in his march to conquer Hollywood, took you with him, and you guys have developed. I love seeing the development of what you did, throughout, because starting like with making movies like Gem and the Holograms and Tick Tick Boom, and learning how you approach especially musicals and how the movement and the energy, and was there something like working together? Did you guys like sit around and plot shots, and were you talking about what you wanted to do? Like, would you go out and get burgers or something and just talk film and talk about cameras? And since he's a gearhead, how did that relationship with the two of you develop as you moved into Hollywood?
Well, it's interesting because so we did the short film, and then suddenly he's got sort of this really amazing career right out of film school, and that doesn't translate it for cinematographers at all. Right. And so we there were several years where we sometimes would bump into each other socially. We had similar friend groups, but we would be at each other's birthday parties and stuff, but it wasn't work colleague things, right? And then it wasn't until 2009 when we did a series called The Legion of Extraordinary Dancers. I was at Obama's first inauguration, standing in the freezing cold, and he called me and he said, I've got this idea for a web series. It was Hulu's first original content. It was called a web series at the time.
Sure.
And he's like, we're going to make no money doing this, but and can you be in LA tomorrow? And it was this very big concept show. And we did the first 5 episodes, and then Paramount was also involved, and we got some more money, and we ended up doing 3 seasons. And that we shot on the first Red camera. And then from there, those 3 years of doing that, he would go off and do other movies like Step Up 3 and
Right.
G.I. Joe, and brought in some other directors that I still work with now. But that really sealed sort of our friendship, our working relationship. And we also started working with the choreographer, Christopher Scott. And it was when we started developing, it was like a sandbox. No one was overseeing us. We could do anything we wanted. And
Wow.
so we just learned over those 3 years how to tell a story through dance and music. And shortly after that, we did Gem and the Holograms.
That's amazing. So I always thought, when I heard that they were making a Gem and the Holograms movie, I'm like, really? And so when you guys were doing that, how did that even like come about? And when he proposed, were you there when he was developing it? Did he propose it to you? How'd you get in? How'd you jump into that?
One of our directors and writers on Legion of Extraordinary Dancers, Ryan Landells, wrote it, and he went to USC with all of us. And I honestly can't remember what the whole development of it was. But Gem and the Holograms, I still, in a box in my basement, have every single episode recorded from the morning TV on VHS. Like, complete massive fan. It was exactly my age. I think I was 7 to 9 when the episodes aired. So it was huge for me. But it was a little movie, and we shot it in 23 days,
Sure.
maybe. Yeah. And Blumhouse produced it, which is interesting choice for Blumhouse since it's not horror. But they are amazing. They were so wonderful to us and such big supporters of the movie. And it was so much fun to make.
When you sit down with Jon and plan something, what is that process? How did the two of you begin? Do you start with a script? Do you guys sit together? Do you talk about it? Do you go to see storyboard? How does the collaboration begin for the two of you?
It's evolved over the years. On When the Kids Are Away, he had hand drawn. When he asked me to shoot the movie, he brought me this huge binder that had exactly the way he wanted it to look, and every frame that he had hand drawn. And now, so on Wicked and Wicked for Good, which we shot simultaneously, most people don't know we actually shot it all.
Right.
Some days we would be shooting the same scene one in the morning, or something from the first movie in the morning, and in the afternoon switch to the second movie. So we're completely on top of each other, shooting completely out of order.
Because of the sets, I would imagine. I mean,
the sets and our actors. We only had Jeff Goldblum for a total of 4 weeks.
Wow.
And we had Michelle Yeoh for a limited period of time. Jonathan Bailey was also working on Bridgerton at the same time. So there were lots of moving pieces, but the sets were mainly what it was, because we shot on 17 sound stages, but the 17 sound stages got reiterated over and over and over again into different 73 sets, 73 variations of sets on those 17 stages.
Right.
But I think Jon and I always have started the same way, which is talking about emotion. And he's an incredibly emotional storyteller. So for the first, I'll talk, since Wicked is so in my head. I used to be able to break down In the Heights perfectly, and now
let's talk. We're talking about Wicked anyway.
Okay, great. So on the first movie of Wicked, some of the emotional intentions that we would discuss, there's single word intentions. And I think maybe because I was a child actor, I love getting an intention as if an actor would get an intention for the lighting and the camera. And to me, camera is just another actor in the room. It is a way to help tell the emotional story. So I tell the emotional, the actors use their face and their voice and their being to tell the story. And I use light and camera movement and lenses to tell the story. So we start with these emotional intentions. And for the first movie, some of the intentions were yearning and desire and friendship and choice. And for the second movie, some of the emotional intentions were separation and surrender and sacrifice and consequence. And as we talked more and more and got deeper into these conversations, it became very clear that the first movie would glow in an effervescent daylight, and the second film would be steeped in a complexity and a maturity and a density.
Wow.
And so even though there's one huge visual arc, each film has its own distinct visual style.
That's really interesting. Do you also use lenses? I mean, as a tool to convey that, like wider as opposed to other lenses? If you go wide here, you're conveying emotions, or if you're using different kinds of lenses. And did you choose? Is that something you chose beforehand with Jon, or is that something that developed as you were shooting?
We had a 2-year pre-prep period while he was developing the scripts, where we would talk about ideas and share images back and forth with each other. And Nathan Crowley joined that conversation at some point as well. And then we were on the ground in London about 18 weeks before we started shooting.
Wow.
And during those 18 weeks, I was doing camera tests. And one conversation was I started to explore was maybe we shoot both movies with different lenses. And then it just became that to me started as I was looking at it, it started to break actually the continuum of the complete visual language. Sure. And so I realized that wasn't going to be it. And during our camera tests, we also found a hero lens for Cynthia for Alphaba, which was the 65 millimeter lens and we had two 65 millimeters lenses. Hers was the close focus lens, and it meant we could put the camera 10 inches away from her.
Wow.
And we only fell in love with that lens on her because during camera tests, we pushed closer and closer and closer in because we wanted to see at what point the green makeup broke, and it didn't. And so that became her hero lens. And Ariana, her hero lens was the 75 millimeter lens. And I used those hero lenses throughout both movies until we get to the very end of the last movie. And during the finale, I shoot Glinda with Cynthia's 65 millimeter hero lens.
Wow, that is so cool.
As Glinda finds her power and learns what it is, what being truly good really is. And I wanted a bit of Elphaba to live on in Glinda.
That's amazing. Wow, that's such a cool approach. Now, one of the things, my first experience with Wicked was at CinemaCon, I want to say 3 years ago, and they did this behind the scenes look at designing, and they were talking about bringing in 1 million flowers or something. It was it was unbelievable. And I think everybody, because I don't think you'd even started shooting yet. I don't know if that. And we were looking at this footage, and I want to say that
but we hadn't shot the tulips, or we just were about to shoot the tulips. It was CinemaCon while we were filming. I remember that. Yeah, and I was there, and everybody was. It's funny. It wasn't like the first thing on my radar was not Wicked. And I think everybody, when we saw this behind the scenes footage, and it's all exhibitors, and we were there as press, and our jaws were on the floor, like, oh my God. Yeah. And you could see that the sets and that the production design was astonishing. Now, what's it like for you? How involved do you get working with? I mean, one of the things about Wicked is I can imagine that Elphaba's green makeup, how many makeups do they go through? Like, you'd have to do like those camera tests, but with the production design and so much color, and you're recreating, I mean, did you look back at Wizard of Oz and have to say, okay, look, we got to make it look different? There's a reality, my favorite word, verisimilitude, to the Wicked land. Like it has a believability to it. Yeah. And how closely did you work with production design and in terms of colors of the sets and things like that? Were you working in tandem? Yeah, I landed in London, and Nathan and I had been on Zoom for months and months and months together. And then we land in London, and the gaffer actually we went to London and scouted as well, because we shot in Norfolk where we planted our tulip fields, and we shot on the Seven Sisters River, and we shot in Windsor. So we had several locations on top of all the building that we did. But when I came for the final, like not going back to the US for the rest of our time there,
Right.
the gaffer came right into my office, and I had only met him on Zoom. His name's David Smith. And he said to me, we have to go up to the art department. And I said, okay, later. And he's like, no, we have no time. And I'm like, what's going on? And he said, these sets are bigger than anything anyone knows. And we went up to the art department and basically never left for 18 weeks. It was, we had to start dissecting all these plans because we needed things built into them as always. I mean,
Sure.
Cinematographers always need things that the designers don't know they need. And even the tulip fields, there's a comp with the tulip field and Munchkin Land, and we needed the sun to be in the same position. So, and the tulips need to be planted 9 months before, like a baby, right? 9 months before they bloom. And so we went to Norfolk and worked with the tulip farmers. Nathan worked out like the 9 million tulips and what colors were going to be in which row and things. And we all carefully selected what colors were going to be planted. But I needed the tulip fields, the sun to match what the sun was going to match in Munchkin Land. So I used something called the Unreal Engine, where I went in figured out where the sun would be. Like we started pivoting the set in the Munchkin Land set, which was built on our Ivanhoe backlot, and this tulip field until we found the exact right path for the days we were filming. And then our tulips bloomed 2 weeks early. And then it was like, oh, the tulips are coming. And we're like, we need sun for it has to be on a sunny day.
Right.
But it worked out. I mean, so that's one of the ways that Nathan Crowley, the production designer, and I had to work together. And I mean, there's an infinite number of ways. Another set that was really hard was the set that we filmed Girl in the Bubble in. I'm going to just take a sip of water.
Yeah, no worries.
So Girl in the Bubble is this one long shot that takes, it's a 3.5 minute shot. And it's technically five Steadicam shots and 2 crane shots stitched together, but we are looking 360 degrees, and so I needed to light it all with practicals, and the set had no practicals, and it had a couple of table lamps.
Oh man!
So I went to Nathan and I go, okay, since this is the concept and we're going in and out of mirrors, I need sconces on walls places. He's like, no, sconces don't match the architecture. Come on, Nathan. There has to be something. He's like, no, I love the way the fluted walls are. He's like, I don't see sconces in here. And so then finally Lee Sandals found his set deck, found found some sconces that he thought would work. And so then and then I wanted more than Nathan wanted. And so then we sort of put them on C-stands in a space to try to see what the spacing would be until Nathan finally signed off on these, on having practicals. And next to the big mirrors, there were also no lights. And Nathan finally realized he could build out of the same material we used, the Ozdesk Ballroom, which was this clear resin. He would build this beautiful architectural piece, and I could put LED light tape behind it so that he would have his architecture without disturbing it with like a fixture on it.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, I love hearing. So, I guess you on a production that was this big, you'd have to do that. I mean, I love the fact that you spent so much time. Now, what about like a musical number itself? If you know that you've got a musical number, like you said, it was all going to look like one shot, and you're using cranes and Steadicams and all these different things. Did you do that for every musical number? Did you sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to shoot? Yeah, I would imagine you'd have to.
Yeah, I mean, before we ever, I mean, we had those 18 weeks, and it sounds like, oh, that's a lot of time. It was not even close to being enough time.
Right,
We
sure.
had to plan out 20 musical numbers
Yeah.
in that 18 weeks, plus everything else. And so Christopher Scott is there doing dance, our choreographer is there in London doing dance rehearsal on in a dance rehearsal space near our sound stages, and I brought my I brought our cinema I brought our I brought our camera operator, our Steadicam operator, on with 10 weeks of prep, and which is actually quite a lot for a camera operator.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was a long conversation to get that agreed upon, but it was really important because we really did have too much to do in the 18 weeks, and Karsten could sit in dance rehearsal all day long and learn the choreography. And so he knew the choreography completely before, long before any, he knew it as well as the dancers did. And it made it really, it helped the storytelling.
Now you said you made that, you said it was a long conversation. Were you having to talk to the higher ups with the producers and say, this is why, because that's very unusual to have a camera person that early.
And in the Heights, I got our camera operator, and on Tick Tick Boom, maybe for 2 weeks of rehearsal on each of those. But
were you fighting that battle? Was that your idea?
yeah,
What a cool thing to do. Wow. Well, good for you. That's producing. Well done.
And I in the end it worked out, but you always have to give up something, right? Like it's a give and take. So, but we got Karsten, and he was there, and that 10 weeks was amazing because we had something that I called Movie Club, which was every Wednesday night we just watch a movie, and it had nothing to do with Wicked. It was me, the camera operator, the key grip, and the gaffer and Marin, who was assisting me at keeping, created like this huge visual roadmap, and she was in charge of making sure everything was lining up and getting, she just was sort of she had the big picture in her head and all my documents so that she could quickly pull them up for me. So the five of us would watch a movie every Wednesday night. And the only purpose was to have a conversation about, like book club, about what we liked. Like it was just an aesthetic conversation to get to know each other as artists.
What were some of the movies that you watched?
I should write this down because I've mentioned this before and I can't remember all of them. We watched Tree of Life. We watched In the Mood for Love.
I was gonna ask if you watched any Wong Kar-wai.
Yes. We watched The Grandmaster. We watched
2 Wong Kar-wais.
Yep. We watched Memoirs of a Geisha. I can't remember what else.
But those are, I mean, I can see why that. I mean, the thing about Wong Kar-wai and both The Grandmaster and In the Mood for Love are, I mean, the lighting in those films is incredible, especially In the Mood for Love with all the rain and the film's incredible. So that's amazing that you guys did this. Now, how then would your relationship with Jon Chu, obviously the director, how would he work into this group?
So then Jon and I were also, every morning we had what was called the war room. And the war room was, at first started off with just blank walls and a big sort of table, or a bunch of tables pushed together. And it developed into a space where everyone could pin things up on the walls, and Nathan had his 3D printed models of the bigger sets in this they brought in more tables, and special effects had built a miniature puppeteered wizard's head so that we could start to understand how we wanted to move with it, and there would be pieces of fabric, so I'd start to understand what textures Paul Tazwell was bringing in, and there was concept art on the wall, and it just was this beautiful space for us to continue to all be in the same world together. And we'd have a meeting every morning at 8 a.m. and it was about, breaking down a certain scene or different sequences, or Jon just to talk to us about whatever he wanted to talk to us about. and one morning I brought in, we knew we wanted to do Girl in the Bubble as one long mirror shot. And so I brought in my daughter's bath toys and my husband's shaving mirror, and we started working it out all together. And so it was a space of play, really.
Right.
And then and then after that, we'd all break out, and I'd often, we had, I think, 8 storyboard artists drawing for us. So we'd get on, and they weren't in London, or a couple were in London, but most of these were Zoom calls. And we do these long Zoom calls with storyboards, drawing ideas. And Jon and I rarely shoot storyboards, but it was a way to start to iterate on what ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's all valuable. It's all valuable to know the lay of the land. You guys, what an incredible working environment you created to do this. What were some of the largest obstacles you had to surmount in the films?
I mean, for me, it was just the scale of the sets, and no one had been on sets these big, and it's fascinating because no matter how many resources you have, time and money are always a constraint, no matter what movie you're on. And I mean, it really is no different shooting an indie feature or a USC student film or any, or Wicked. It all is right. We're all just wanting, all we are doing is wanting to create something with a great team of people and hope someone will one day sit in the movie theater and watch it. And so, but the reality of Wicked was the exterior sets just were so big, and the amount of pre-light time was vast, and to keep going for 155 shooting days, plus I was working almost every Saturday and Sunday, was doing pre-lights was really a challenge. And it and so, I say I feel like I can now do anything after doing Wicked, because
I can. I mean, the scope of the movie is enormous, and I liked hearing about interacting with visual effects too. I mean, obviously that's a whole other thing. What about post? In post production, how much do you work with? I covered working in doing behind the scenes stuff for the extended versions of Lord of the Rings. They had developed some of the first digital grading software on that film, and it's in 25 years it's gotten so incredible what you can do in post. Do you use post a lot? How involved with you are you involved in the entire color grading process, or do you prefer to what you get is what you're shooting?
So I sit through the entire grading process, but I've also been involved. I come in and out of while they're editing and visual effects reviews, and if there are any questions about things matching my lighting from the visual effects team, I weigh in. And
who wins? Do you get to win on that one?
Pablo's amazing. He always says, "I take my lead from you and Nathan." So Pablo's
that's very cool.
Supervisor, and he said, "From you, I take the lead on lighting and on lensing, and from Nathan, I take the lead on the set and materials." And it was a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, so it sounds like a really great creative process on these movies.
And even to the point, like, I remember I saw an early shot for a trailer that was never even going to be in the movie, but it was like a teaser shot.
Right.
And I looked at it and I'm like, what lens is this? And they're like, oh, it's a 27 mil. I'm like, we never had a 27 mil. And they're like, but it's fine. It's a visual effects shot. And I said, no, it's not fine. I said, you guys need to only use our lens kit. And from then on, they only did. They didn't deviate from that.
Wow, good for you. That's so cool that you did that. I mean, I totally understand that. How great that you have this kind of collaborative team. I mean, When you finally saw the film, what's it like for you? Like, you've been through every step of the process from the very beginning, having those war room meetings. When you finally sit down, do you go to the mix session? Do you go and see the final mix with the film put together, or do you wait to see it? When do you first see the finished film?
What was really cool on this movie is the mix was happening simultaneously for the DI while we were coloring. So they sound was vying for Jon's time, and I kept calling the post supervisor Jeffrey and going, "Where's Jon? He was supposed to be here 2 hours ago." And so we all wanted Jon to sign off on things and make sure we were on the right track for things. And Jon then had another obligation and had to leave for a week. But he finished the mix, and it was the greatest thing I think that's ever happened to me on any movie, which was I've never had the mix when I color a movie. I only have the evidence, but I had the final mix, and I went and they also did a cast screening with how far we had gotten in color with the final mix on it in a theater at Universal. And so I sat in the dark room in a theater with not very many people. It was just like some of the cast members and some of their friends and family and agents and stuff. So it wasn't full, but I could sit in the dark space and watch the movie and hear the sound. And there's so much silence in this movie, and the way they create silence that wasn't in the Avid mix. And so I was able to take that inspiration and go back in. And then Jon and I had another 4 or 5 days to finish the movie. I guess we only had 2 days to finish the first version. Then we have to do all the other versions, Dolby Vision, IMAX, all of those. But so we had a couple more days, but there was just like all this little fine tuning I could do now because I had the final mix.
Right.
And I think it makes the movie so much better. Now it's how I always want to finish a movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Do you think you would ever do a movie and not do it that way again? Because that sounds like the ideal way to do it.
Right.
I mean, based on time and schedules, obviously. Yeah. I mean, but I've never heard that. What an interesting thing to do. Okay, knowing that you've done that, was there something unique? There was something that now you had the mix. Was there something that you never thought about doing and you went in, something that we might be able to look at and see what it might have been?
So I'm trying to think which scenes were the most sort of powerful. I guess in Girl in the Bubble, right after March of the Witch Hunters, Glinda comes in and she closes the door and the sound all goes out and the camera just sits with her. And I had brought it up to a certain level, like brightness level. And then, and we're talking about like teeny increments. We're not talking about, right? Like this is all very much a taste thing, but it was so quiet that I realized we didn't need to see her, like we didn't need it to be quite as bright as it was. And so we just brought it down just a little bit because there was no sound filling up your head. So, right. So you didn't need as much light on her face.
Okay. All right. See, that's something specific that we can look at. I love that. Now, when I could talk to you forever, but we're running out of time. So I just want to say, like, when you obviously you're working on something that went from a book to a beloved stage play to now a very successful film, and it even looks to be more successful the second time out. When you finally get to see what all of this time and effort and creativity has wrought, do you go see movies and sit with an audience and see them? Do you like to sit and watch the final product with not an industry crowd, but people that are going to see it for the first time during like, are you going to go see the opening weekend this weekend?
Yes, I'm going to watch it in its entirety tomorrow night. Tonight, me and Myron Kirstein, the editor, and Jared LaBeouf, the one of our executive producer who works with Marc Platt's company. The three of us are jumping in a car and we're going to go theater hop and see. We'll walk into a theater and see. Stand in the back and watch 10 or 15 minutes.
That's so cool.
So we won't know where, we won't know what scene they'll be at when we walk in. But I think just sort of getting a taste of everyone seeing it for the first time is really wonderful. I mean, just being a kid, I remember going to see the re-release of Empire Strikes Back, and I would have been young, and I remember crawling under the seat because I was scared. And then I remember sitting in the seat eating popcorn, and I remember being lined up around the block to get into the theater. And it was a theater on 34th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue and in New York. And it's just like that specialness of being in a dark theater and experiencing something for the first time. And obviously I'll never be able to see Wicked that way because I know
Sure.
it. So getting just to sort of look at little children's faces watching it, I'm sort of excited about.
My last question to you is, now movies are coming out, like you alluded to this, you have all these different versions. You've got your Dolby Vision version, you've got your IMAX version, you've got Screen X, whatever the hell they're doing, and you've got all these. Do you have a preferred version, and how do you feel about these multiple formats that you're working in?
Yeah. So I would say the Dolby Vision version is my favorite, and the IMAX, and it's a quality control thing. I know when I'm selecting a Dolby Vision, a Dolby theater, or I'm selecting an IMAX theater, that the projection is going to be impeccable.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm selecting other versions, I have no clue what the quality of the projector is going to be, the brightness, has the bulb been changed? Whereas when I see it in IMAX, with the laser projection in IMAX and with the Dolby Vision version, I know that if you see it in those formats, it's exactly the way we intended those.
Right.
To be.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that drives me crazy is projection. I mean, I'll go to the Regal Spectrum in Orange County because their IMAX is so incredibly well tuned. It's so incredible to see a movie there, and I'm going to go see Wicked for Good there. Okay. So I mean, it's incredible. Well, listen, I want to thank you, Alice, so much for being here to talk to us about this film. Congratulations to you and the entire crew on what a phenomenal piece of work. And I think you're going to have this is opening day. It's Friday. We're talking. I mean, you had one of the most successful previews of all time last night. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for representing for USC. And if you had a dream film to shoot, if you could shoot anything you wanted that hasn't been made, or what a genre, what would you do? What would you want to shoot?
Oh goodness, I don't think I have a dream genre. I think I just want to continue to make movies with really wonderful human beings.
Great answer. Great answer. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for being here on the Designing Hollywood show.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Amazing questions. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and of course, Jon Campea from the Jon Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeek Singularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.